This is Yosef and the Shabbat Fish, one of our most favorite stories by Eric A. Kimmel and illustrated by Martina Peluso. Long ago, a man named Yosef lived in the land of Israel. He made his home in Tiberia, a city on the shores of the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret. No one honored the Shabbat more than Yosef. No one set a more elegant table. His challah loaves were baked with the finest flour, and his goblets were filled with the rarest wine. The fish for his Shabbat meal was the sweetest that could be found. Perfumed oil pressed from the ripest olives filled his Shabbat lamps. Every Friday night, as the sun began to set, Yosef threw open the doors of his house. He invited everyone in who wished to celebrate Shabbat. Travelers far from home, beggars from the alleys, young and old, rich or poor, everyone was welcome. Yosef treated them all as honored guests. Yosef's neighbor, Yehuda, also set a fine Shabbat table, but he did not open his house to everyone. "Why do you waste money feeding beggars?" Yehuda asked Yosef. "They would be satisfied with less. Do as I do. Give charity to the beggars, but invite only important people to your Shabbat table." "Everyone is important," said Yosef. "Those who come to my table are honoring me, and together we honor Shabbat. What we give to the Shabbat is repaid 1,000-fold. Wait and see. You will be left with nothing," Yehuda predicted. Over time, Yehuda's warning came true. Yosef's wealth melted away. He no longer lived in a fine house. He no longer dressed in expensive clothes. But he still celebrated Shabbat, and he still welcomed everyone to the house. Now, his guests baked the challah, brought the fish, and shared their wine. His lamps were filled with ordinary oil, but the joy around his table was the same. Yehuda scoffed as he saw Yosef's fortunes declined. "What we give to Shabbat is repaid 1,000-fold. What a joke! Yosef's hospitality has brought him to the gutter." Then one night, Yehuda had a dream. He saw Yosef sitting in his house overseeing his lands and counting his money as if he were his own. Yehuda woke up trembling. "Does this mean that all my wealth will be given to Yosef?" he worried. "Is this dream a warning?" Yehuda became so frightened that he could not sleep. He avoided Yosef, and if he saw him by chance, he ran away. His terror became so great that he sold everything he owned and purchased a ruby as big as a hazelnut. He sewed the ruby into the lining of his cap. Then he packed his clothes and left Tiberia. Yehuda traveled to the port city of Caesarea, where he boarded a ship bound for Africa. "Yosef will never find me," he thought to himself. "I will be safe at last." After several days at sea, the ship sailed into a frightful storm. The sailors and passengers clung to the rigging to keep from being swept overboard. A gust of wind whipped Yehuda's cap from his head and tossed his life savings into the churning waves. Back in Tiberia, Yosef still celebrated Shabbat, even though his fortune continued to decline. He missed his friend Yehuda and wondered why he had left so suddenly. One day, he went down to the market to shop for Shabbat. A fisherman had just brought a huge fat fish to the dock. "Look at that one," Yosef exclaimed. "What a Shabbat meal that fish would make." "Take it," the fisherman said. "I can't do that. You have to earn a living too, said Yosef. Don't you remember me, Yosef? The fisherman asked. Last year I lost my boat in a storm. You welcomed my family to your home and shared your Shabbat meal with us. You invited us to come back every Shabbat, and you helped me to find a new boat. I owe everything to you. Allow me to repay some of my debt. Please take the fish. On one condition, Yosef said. You and your family must come to my house for Shabbat. Yosef took the fish home. When his wife cut it open, she saw something glistening. When she looked closer, she discovered a ruby as large as a hazelnut. We're rich! What a fine Shabbat we will have, Yosef exclaimed. Yosef sold the ruby for 13 sacks of gold. He bought back his house and lands. He prospered as never before. But his greatest joy was still to celebrate Shabbat. One Friday evening, a weary traveler appeared at Yosef's door. Come celebrate Shabbat with us, Yosef said, inviting him in. Don't you recognize me, Yosef? The traveler said. I'm your friend Yehuda. I was once rich, but now I have lost everything. He described how he had become penniless when his ruby was lost in a storm. Yosef embraced Yehuda. I'm so happy to see you. I found your ruby, and I will return its value to you. No, Yehuda replied. In my long travels, I have learned that some things are more important than riches. Your friendship is one of them, and the peace and joy of Shabbat is the most precious of all. With Yosef's help, Yehuda regained his wealth, and from then on he celebrated Shabbat as Yosef did, with an open door and an open heart. For truly it is said, what we give to Shabbat is repaid 1,000-fold. The end.